I'm Stephanie Anderson, and I'm 38 years old. For 20 years, my own father has treated me like I don't exist. Then on Thanksgiving 2024, in front of 27 of our relatives, he handed me a DNA test. And what he said still haunts me. He said, "Prove you're even my daughter." The whole room just went dead quiet. My mom dropped her wine glass, and my brother Brandon, he just laughed. Everyone thought it was just Dad's cruelest joke yet. Just another way to show me I wasn't really part of the family. But what none of them knew was that this test was about to blow a 35-year-old secret wide open. And it was going to cost my father everything. Before we get into that, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe, but only if this story is really hitting home for you. I'd love to know where you're all watching from and what time it is. This is the story of how my dad's biggest insult turned into his own downfall. Growing up in my family, you learned your place from day one. My dad, William Anderson, started his construction company from scratch and turned it into a $45 million empire. And trust me, he never let anyone forget it. His company, Anderson and Associates, was his real firstborn. That was his legacy. I was just the daughter who showed up 3 years before his real kid, my brother Brandon. And the favoritism? It wasn't subtle at all. For my 16th birthday, I got a used SAT prep book with a note that said, "Maybe this'll help you amount to something." That same year, Brandon got a brand new BMW just for getting his driver's license. When I graduated with top honors in computer science from UConn, my dad's response was, "Well, at least you'll be able to get a job." But when Brandon barely passed with C's in marketing from some state school, my dad threw a party for 200 people and announced Brandon as the future of Anderson and Associates. Fast forward to 2024. I'd been a software engineer for 15 years at a Fortune 500 company. I built systems that saved them millions of dollars. And Brandon? He'd been the VP of operations at my dad's company for 5 years, even though he never finished a single project without someone having to clean up his mess. But to my dad, Brandon was building the family legacy, and I was just there. Brandon is the future of Anderson and Associates. My dad would always say at company events with his hand on my brother's shoulder. As for Stephanie, well, at least she has a steady job. But the worst part wasn't him blowing me off. It was how everyone else just went along with it. My relatives, family, friends, even my own mom. They all just played along with this story that Brandon was the chosen one, and I was just lucky to even be in the room. That company retreat in August of 2023 really should have been my breaking point. I had just built a new inventory system that was going to save Anderson and Associates $2 million a year. I'd worked nights and weekends on it for 3 solid months, missing family dinners, canceling plans, all because my dad said the company needed this. Then at the big gala dinner, my dad got up in front of 150 employees and partners to make an announcement. He started with, "First, I want to recognize the amazing work done on our new inventory system." And for a second, my heart actually jumped. Then he said Brandon has once again proven why he's our VP of operations. This system is going to change everything for us. And Brandon, who literally asked me what inventory management even was just 3 weeks before, he just stood up and waved while everyone clapped. I was just frozen in my seat. And my mom, Patricia, was right there next to me. Her hand tapped mine under the table. It wasn't comfort. It was a warning. Stay quiet. Don't make a scene. Later that night, I went up to Brandon at the hotel bar. I built that entire system." He just shrugged, taking a sip of his whiskey. "The expensive stuff charged to the company card, of course. Dad says leadership is about delegation. I delegated it to you. That's what good executives do. You took credit for my work." "No, I took credit for managing you well." He corrected me with that same damn smirk our father always has. "Besides, you're not really built for the spotlight, are you? Some people are meant to be leaders. Others are just meant to be reliable. And then my mother showed up. She always did when things got tense. But instead of defending me, she just gave me that look I'd seen 1,000 times. It was somewhere between pity and guilt. "Let's not ruin a lovely evening," she said softly, but her hands were shaking when she reached for her wine. Then October 2024 came, and it sealed everyone's fate. William had called Brandon into a meeting with David Peterson, the guy who'd been our family's estate lawyer for 20 years. Brandon can't ever keep his mouth shut about good news, so he called me right after. "Guess who's about to be very wealthy," he sang into the phone. "Dad just updated his will. 85% of everything, the company, the properties, the investments, it's all going to his sole biological son." That's what it literally says, Stephanie. Sole biological son. The other 15% goes to you. But here's the catch. You can't sell your shares for 10 years. He wants to make sure you can't cash out and walk away from the family legacy. That specific wording, I said, my mind stuck on biological son. Peterson suggested it. Brandon kept going, totally ignoring my tone. Said it would make the will ironclad, stops gold diggers or some distant relatives from trying to make a claim. Dad loved it. Said blood is what matters in the end. That evening I got an email from Peterson's law firm. It was a copy of the main parts of the will, which they sent to everyone in it. And there it was in black and white. 85% of all assets, shares, and controlling interest in Anderson and Associates will go to my sole biological son, Brandon Anderson. $38 million. That's what Brandon was set to get, based on what the company was worth. My 15% was worth about $7 million. Not a small amount, but with that 10-year restriction, I'd have to just sit and watch Brandon run the company into the ground, totally powerless to sell my shares. But that phrase just kept nagging me. Sole biological son. Why not just say my son Brandon? Why add biological? November came, and there was a board meeting that felt more like a coronation. William invited me, but not as a participant. I was there for what he called family support. I sat in the corner while he presented Brandon as his replacement to 7 board members who all had a stake in Anderson and Associates. Brandon has been key to our recent tech advances, William announced, pointing to the screen, showing the numbers from my inventory system. Under his leadership, we've saved $2 million this quarter alone. A board member, Jennifer Collins, who's known me since I was 10, looked over at me and raised her eyebrows. She knew exactly who built that system. I'd just answered her tech questions about it 2 weeks ago, but she didn't say a thing. I want to officially name Brandon as the next CEO to take over when I step down next year, William went on. Everyone voted yes. After the meeting, I heard a couple of junior execs talking in the break room. Did you hear once Brandon's in charge? He's planning a total shakeup. I guess anyone who's not one of his guys should start polishing up their resume. What about Stephanie? The other one asked. Especially Stephanie. Brandon told Kevin she's been coasting on the family name for way too long. Said it's time people earn their jobs. The irony made me want to laugh out loud. Brandon, the guy who can't even code a basic web page, talking about people earning their spot. That night my mom called. Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks, she said, and her voice was weirdly empty. Your father wants everybody there, the whole family, and some business partners. He said he's got something special planned. Yeah, right. Special, like Brandon's big CEO announcement. There was this long, awkward silence. Just be ready for anything, Stephanie, and try not to take it all so personally. But things were about to get very, very personal. If you've ever had to deal with a favorite child in your family, drop a comment and tell me your story. And make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you don't miss the insane climax that's coming up. What do you think is going to happen with that DNA kit? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanksgiving at our family's estate in Greenwich was always a big show, but this year felt off. 27 of us were packed into a dining room that looked like it was straight out of a magazine. It was all family, William's business partners, and even Michael Harrison, his old CFO, who got mysteriously fired way back in 1990. But for some reason, he was still in my father's circle. William stood at the head of the table, raising his crystal glass, his face just beaming with pride. Before we eat, I want to make a toast. To family, to blood, to legacy. His eyes locked on Brandon. To my real son, who's carrying on the Anderson name with honor. Everyone lifted their glasses. So did I. That phrase, real son, was just ringing in my ears. Then it was time for gifts. William decided to make Thanksgiving special by handing out Christmas presents early. Brandon got a Rolex Submariner. For the future CEO, William announced to the whole room. My cousins all got expensive new gadgets. Then William turned to me, holding a little box with a red bow. The room went quiet. And for Stephanie, he said, his voice booming so everyone could hear, something I think we've all been wondering about for years. I opened the box. Inside was an ancestry DNA kit. The whole room went dead silent. Someone gasped. My mom's wine glass slipped right out of her hand and shattered all over the floor. William's smile was like a knife. Just to put all those old family jokes to bed, he said, let's see if you're really mine. I mean, you've never really fit in with us, have you? Maybe this will finally explain why. 27 pairs of eyes were staring at me. Brandon was actually laughing. Oh, come on, Stephanie. It's just a joke. Unless you have something to be worried about. I looked down at the kit, then at William, then over at my mother, who was desperately trying to clean up the spilled wine with shaking hands. You really want me to take this test? I asked, keeping my voice steady. If you're really an Anderson, you have nothing to hide, he shot back. I stood up real slow, holding the DNA kit. You could hear a pin drop. Fine, I said, I'll take your test. My voice cut through the quiet dining room. On one condition. William's smirk got even wider. You're not really into Spot to be making conditions. It's only fair that Brandon takes one too. I shot back, turning to my brother. After all, if we're checking bloodlines for the family records, shouldn't we check everyone? Brandon's laugh died in his throat. That's ridiculous. Everyone knows I'm Dad's son. I look just like him. Then you've got nothing to worry about. I threw his own words right back at him. Unless you're worried about something. The room started buzzing with whispers. A few of the business partners looked really uncomfortable, but others looked like they were eating up the drama. William's jaw clenched. This isn't necessary. Brandon doesn't need to prove anything. But I do, I asked. In front of everybody. Either we both take the test or I walk out right now. You can explain to everyone why your little joke only applies to me. Michael Harrison spoke up from his chair. Seems fair to me, William. What's good for one is good for the other. My mother had gone completely white, her hands gripping the table. This isn't necessary. It's Thanksgiving. We should be thankful for our family. Not this. William looked back and forth between us, doing the math in his head. His reputation was on the line. Backing down would make him look weak. Fine, he finally said. Brandon will take the test too, just to prove what we all know. Brandon just shrugged, getting his confidence back. Whatever, this is stupid but fine. I held up the kit. One more thing. The results get announced publicly at the company gala next month. Since you wanted to make this a public thing, let's go all out. The next morning, we all met in William's home office. He'd overnighted 2 more DNA kits, and not from Ancestry DNA. These were from Gene Labs, a medical-grade testing company that gives you legal paperwork. If we're doing this, we're doing it right, William said, like it was his idea from the start. No room for doubt or mistakes. David Peterson was there as a witness, along with Patricia Hayes from the board, who William called to make sure everything was transparent. I also insisted on recording the whole thing on my phone, and William let me with a big eye roll. We each swabbed our cheeks, sealed the samples in the tubes, and signed the chain of custody papers. Peterson notarized all of it. The results would take 3 to 4 weeks. The instructions said we'd get legal documents with the results. Perfect timing, William said. The company gala is December 15th. We'll have the results by then. As I put my sample in the shipping box, Brandon leaned over. You know you're just making a bigger fool of yourself, right? When these come back, everyone's going to know Dad was right about you all along. Maybe, I said, sealing the box, or maybe everyone will finally learn the truth. My mother, who'd been dead silent the whole time, suddenly spoke up. I need to lie down. I'm not feeling well. She hurried out of the room, but I caught the look on her face in a mirror by the door. Pure terror. That evening, she started taking anxiety pills. I know because I saw the prescription bottle on her bathroom counter when I went to check on her. The prescription was filled that very day, November 29th, 2024. A secret that was buried for 35 years was about to come out. And my mom knew exactly what it was. 3 days after we sent in the tests, my mom just showed up at my apartment. She'd never done that in the 5 years I lived there. We need to talk, she said, pushing right by me into my living room. About the tests. You have to call the lab and cancel them. Why would I do that? She was pacing around my tiny living room, wringing her hands. Some things are better left alone. Stephanie, some truths just don't help anyone. Like the truth about why Dad's treated me like crap for 20 years. She stopped pacing and just looked at me with those guilty eyes I'd seen a million times. Your father was away on business in 1989 for the Peterson Project in Chicago. He was gone for 3 months. Brandon was born in January 1990. Her voice was just as whisper. Do the math, Stephanie. I did. That means Brandon was conceived in April of 1989. Dad was in Chicago. Yes, she just collapsed onto my couch. But Michael Harrison wasn't. Michael Harrison, William's old CFO, the guy from Thanksgiving dinner, the one who backed me up about Brandon taking the test too. You and Harrison. She pulled an old picture out of her purse. It was her and Harrison at some company party, standing way too close for just co-workers. It only happened one time. I was so lonely. William was always gone or at work. Michael was nice to me. But then I got pregnant and the timing. William never even questioned it. Brandon looked enough like him, acted like him. Does Harrison know? I don't know. Maybe he has a clue. He's never said a word. Then she grabbed my hands. Please, Stephanie, just cancel the tests. I'll talk to your father. I'll make him treat you better. Just please don't tear our family apart. I didn't cancel the tests. I couldn't. After 20 years of being called a mistake, now I finally knew why my mom never stood up for me. Her own guilt kept her quiet, while William tore me down day after day. December came, and everyone was getting ready for the company's 25th anniversary party. It was going to be at the Ritz-Carlton Ballroom on December 15th. 350 guests were coming, investors, partners, even reporters from the Hartford Business Journal. William was telling anyone who would listen what he had planned. It's going to be the party of the year, he told me at one of those family dinners I had to go to. I'm announcing Brandon as my successor, and we'll finally put those stupid DNA questions to bed. 2 birds, 1 stone. The DNA results were due December 14th. Dr. Emily Davis from Ganesh Labs emailed me. She said the results would be ready and would come with all the legal paperwork for court, just in case. Why would I need it for court? I'd asked her when we were on the phone. It's standard for stuff like inheritance or custody fights, she explained. Your father asked for the legal package himself when he called to upgrade the tests. Of course he did. William wanted solid proof that I wasn't his kid, probably, so he could cut me out of the will completely. So I spent those weeks getting my own plan ready. It was just a simple PowerPoint. Only 10 slides, nothing fancy. Just some blank spaces for the test results, a few highlighted parts of the will, and some screenshots of emails. I saved it all on a flash drive that I kept in my pocket 24/7. My mom called me 17 times in those 2 weeks. I never picked up. Brandon kept sending me arrogant texts about practicing his big CEO speech. William sent a text about dressing right for the gala. A storm was coming and they had no idea they'd made it themselves. December 14th, 3 p.m. The email from Gene Labs popped up while I was in my office, pretending to work, but really just staring at my inbox, hitting refresh every 30 seconds. Subject: DNA test results. A legal file was attached. My hands were shaking when I opened it. 3 test results, each one laid out in detail. Stephanie Anderson, biological daughter of William Anderson. Probability of paternity, 99.9987%. My heart just stopped. Then I scrolled to the next page. Brandon Anderson, not biologically related to William Anderson. Probability of paternity 0.0%. But it was the third page that made me gasp. Brandon Anderson, biological son of Michael Harrison. Probability of paternity 99.991%. They'd checked Brandon's sample against Harrison's DNA from their public database. Apparently, Harrison took one of those ancestry tests a few years back, and when you agree to the terms, they can use your DNA to find family. I read the results 5 times. Not because I didn't believe it, but because it all finally made sense. The guilt I always saw in my mother's eyes. William always swearing I wasn't his. He'd been pushing his own doubts about Brandon onto me for 20 years. The irony was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. The son he'd worshipped, the one he groomed and gave everything to on a silver platter, wasn't even his. And the daughter he tormented blew off and tried to shame with a DNA test. I was his only biological kid. I forwarded everything to my lawyer with one question. The will specifically says sole biological son. So what happens to the money? She got back to me right away. If it's true, Brandon gets nothing. That part of the will is worthless. As the only biological child, you've got a case to challenge the whole thing. Tomorrow's gala was about to get real interesting. I spent the rest of December 14th getting my presentation perfect. 10 slides, 10 minutes to burn down 20 years of lies. Slide 1, a family photo from last year's gala. William's arm is around Brandon. I'm standing off to the side, barely in the picture. Slide 2 is the title DNA results, as requested by William Anderson. Slides 3 through 5, my results blown up big enough for the back of the room to see. Every percentage is highlighted. The lab's logo is right there, Dr. Smith's signature clear as day. Slides 6 to 8, Brandon's results. The 0% probability he's William's son is in 72-point font. Then the match to Harrison, just as big. Slide 9. The exact words from the will with sole biological son lit up in yellow. Slide 10. An email from James Peterson that came in an hour ago, right after I sent him the results. It says, based on these certified results, the inheritance clause for Brandon Anderson is legally void. The estate will have to be divided up by law, or the will needs to be rewritten. I also prepped all the backup documents, the full gene report, the video of us giving our samples, the notarized forms. Everything was loaded onto 3 separate USB drives and backed up online. At 11 p.m., I shot an email to Jennifer Collins and 3 other board members telling them they had to be at the gala tomorrow. I said a big announcement was coming about the company's new leader, something that would affect their money. Then I shut my phone off. I poured a glass of wine and practiced my speech one last time. This isn't about revenge, I said to my reflection. This is about the truth. This is about justice. This is about finally getting what's mine. Tomorrow, the whole Anderson dynasty was going to crash and burn, and I'd be the only one left. It was all about to go down. How do you think William's gonna react when he finds out? Hit the like button if you're on Stephanie's side. Share this with anyone who needs a push to stand up for themselves. Comment justice if you want to see what happens next. December 14th, midnight. I turned my phone back on for just a second. I had 17 missed calls from my mother, 5 from Brandon, and zero from William. There were texts, too, from Mom. Stephanie, please answer. We need to talk. And, I know you got the results. Please, honey, don't do this. Then Brandon started. Why is Mom crying? She won't tell me what's wrong. This is about tomorrow, isn't it? Whatever you're planning, it's not going to work. Dad says you're just jealous. Pathetic. I turned the phone off again and went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. I just kept thinking about all the things that led to this. Every snotty comment, every time he stole my work, every time they told me I wasn't good enough, wasn't really family, wasn't worthy of the Anderson name. At 3 a.m., I got up and looked at the presentation one more time. For a split second, I actually thought about what my mom asked. This would ruin her marriage, Brandon's entire life, and William's perfect little legacy. Then I remembered the last Christmas when William gave Brandon a Porsche and gave me a gift card to Target. I remembered him telling investors I was just the IT help after I'd saved his company $2 million. I remembered 20 years of being called a mistake. I added one last slide to the presentation, a quote, "The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off." Outside, snow started falling, covering Greenwich in white. By tomorrow night, everything would be different. The Anderson family, as we knew it, would be over. I finally fell asleep at 5 a.m., clutching that USB drive like it was my lifeline, ready for the reckoning I'd waited 20 years for. The Ritz-Carlton ballroom was sparkling with Christmas lights, filled with every important person in Connecticut's construction industry. 350 guests were sipping champagne and eating caviar, celebrating 25 years of Anderson and Associates. I wore a simple black dress, classy but low-key, exactly what William would expect. He'd stuck me at table 12 in the back corner with distant relatives and their dates. Brandon, of course, was at the main table with William, my mother and the board members acting like a king. William took the stage at 8 p.m. sharp, looking powerful in his custom-made tuxedo. 25 years ago, he started. I started this company with nothing but ambition and a plan to build a legacy. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that legacy will be carried on by my son, Brandon Anderson. The room exploded with applause. Brandon stood up, waving like a politician. He had this big, cocky smile on his face. Family, William went on, is everything. Blood's thicker than water. And Brandon is my blood, my heir, my future. I saw Michael Harrison sitting at table 3, and I couldn't read his face as he watched William's little show. Before I officially name Brandon as the next CEO, I want to address something. William's eyes locked on me at the back of the room. As most of you know, we did some family DNA testing not too long ago. Just a little Thanksgiving fun that got a little out of hand. But I'm happy to report that any questions about our family tree are settled. My hand found the USB drive in my purse. So without any more delay, I stood up, my voice ringing through the ballroom. I'd like to share those DNA results with everyone. Since you brought it up in front of everyone at Thanksgiving, it's only fair we settle it in front of everyone here. The whole room turned to stare at me. William's smile flickered for a second. I'm sure that's not necessary, Stephanie. I started walking through the ballroom, past 25 tables of stunned guests, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Each step felt like a mile, but I kept my shoulders back and my head high. May I? I motioned to the laptop connected to the huge screens on the stage. William's jaw clenched. Stephanie, this isn't the time you made it the time when you gave me that DNA kit in front of everybody. I said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. You wanted answers. I have them. Brandon just laughed from his table. This is pathetic even for you. Jennifer Collins spoke up from the board's table. Let her speak, William. You did make this public at Thanksgiving. Several of us were there. Trapped by his own ego, William stepped back. 5 minutes? Then security will escort you out. I plugged in my USB drive. My hands were steady, even though my heart was racing. The first slide popped up on the screens. Our family photo. I've been told I'm not really an Anderson, that I'm a mistake, that I don't belong. I clicked to the next slide. DNA results as requested by William Anderson. So let's see who really belongs in this family. The room was dead silent except for the projector's hum. Remember that DNA kit you gave me as a joke? I looked straight at William. Remember insisting Brandon take 1-2 to prove he's your real son? My mother stood up so fast. Her chair scraped the floor. Stephanie, please. The results came in yesterday, I said, clicking to slide 3. Let's start with mine. The screen showed my results. Probability of paternity 99.9987%. Turns out I am definitely William Anderson's biological daughter. But that's not the interesting part, I said, clicking to the next slide. Brandon's results filled the screens. The 0% probability of William's paternity might as well have been written in fire. The ballroom just erupted. Gasps, whispers, chairs scraping as people stood up to get a better look. William was frozen at the side of the stage, the color draining from his face. That's fake, Brandon shouted, jumping to his feet. This is all made up. She's lying. I clicked to the next slide. Brandon's match with Michael Harrison. 99.991%. Michael Harrison slowly stood up from his seat, his face a mask of total shock and something else, maybe recognition. The pieces were finally falling into place after 35 years. My mom just slumped back in her chair, her hand clamped over her mouth. I thought she'd faint, but she didn't. She just sat there, with tears pouring down her face. The secret she'd held for so long was finally out. According to the will William signed back in October, I clicked to the next slide with the highlighted text. 85% of everything goes to his only biological son. The last slide popped up. It was Peterson's email confirmation. But William doesn't have a biological son. He has a biological daughter. Me. The mistake. The big disappointment. The one who never belonged. William finally found his voice. This can't be. The lab messed up. Gantech Labs doesn't mess up. Dr. Emily Davis stood up from table 7. I had no idea she was even here, but apparently Jennifer Collins invited her. I watched over these tests myself. I ran them 3 times to be certain. The results are right. The photographer from the Hartford Business Journal was snapping pictures like crazy. Board members were all huddled together arguing. And Brandon looked like his whole world had just blown up in his face, because it had. This is a setup, Brandon shouted, pushing through people to get to the stage. She paid someone off. This isn't real. Dr. Davis walked to the mic, calm and in control. I'm Dr. Emily Davis, Director of Genetic Services at Ganesh Labs. I'd bet my entire professional reputation on these results. We kept a strict chain of custody, which was witnessed and notarized by Mr. David Peterson. Peterson stood up, and he did not look happy about it. The sample collection was done by the book and documented. I have the video evidence and the signed forms. Dr. Davis kept going. And what's more, Mr. Harrison's DNA was already in our system from a test he took 3 years ago. We found the match with Brandon Anderson through our normal relative matching process. Jennifer Collins stood up at the board table. William, because of this, we need to call an emergency board meeting tonight. You can't do this. William finally broke completely. This company is mine. Brandon is my son. I raised him. You raised him, I said into the mic. But he's not your biological son. And according to your own will, that's all that matters. Your words, not mine. I pulled out my phone and showed the email I'd sent the board 5 minutes before I got on stage. The full Ganesh report, the video, everything. The board has all the paperwork, I announced. So does the Hartford Business Journal as of... I checked my phone. 30 seconds ago. Brandon charged toward me, but security grabbed him. The same security William had threatened me with. You destroyed everything, Brandon screamed as they held him back. You vindictive? I didn't destroy anything, I said calmly. I just told the truth. The DNA test was your father's idea, remember? William grabbed the mic, his hands shaking. This changes nothing. I'm still the CEO. I'm still the majority shareholder. Actually, Jennifer Collins announced fresh off a quiet phone call, the board has voted 7-2. You're temporarily suspended while we do a full investigation into possible fraud for misrepresenting who takes over the company. We can, Patricia said. And we did. You've been training a guy who has no real claim to this company, and you ignored your actual heir. Our shareholders could sue us for everything we've got. William looked over at my mom. She was just frozen at the VIP table. Patricia, tell them it's a mistake. Just tell them. She got up real slow. You could barely hear her even with the mic. It's true, all of it. Michael and me, it only happened once. I'm so sorry. And the room just went crazy again. Michael Harrison was totally swarmed by people firing questions at him. They had to physically hold Brandon back from going after Harrison. He was screaming, "You knew you had to know." "The lawyers can fix this," William said, sounding desperate. "We can fight the will." "On what grounds?" I shot back. "You're the one who said biological son. You're the one who demanded DNA tests. You did this to yourself." I turned to the room one last time. For 20 years, this man told me I was worthless, that I wasn't good enough to be an Anderson. He propped up his golden boy on a pile of lies, and he tore me down with what he thought was the truth. But the real truth? Well, that's just poetic justice. Security started dragging Brandon out while he was still screaming and cussing. William was just standing there alone on the stage, watching his whole empire fall apart. He was finally getting a taste of what it feels like to be the outsider. The emergency board meeting was called for 10 p.m. in the hotel conference room. I wasn't even supposed to be there. But Jennifer Collins insisted I come, since I was the only real Anderson heir left. The vote was fast. No one hesitated. William was out as CEO effective immediately. Brandon's job as vice president was gone too. He got 2 weeks severance, the bare minimum the law requires. "We need a steady hand at the wheel," Patricia announced, "someone who gets the company and knows what they're doing." "The board is unanimous. Stephanie Anderson is the new interim CEO." I never saw that coming. I'm not sure I'm ready. "You built the system that saved us $2 million. Board member William Chen cut in. "You've got an engineering degree and 15 years of experience in this world. You're way more qualified than Brandon ever was." David Peterson already had the emergency papers ready to go. Based on the DNA and the exact words in the will, the 85% controlling share is yours right now. The other 15% stays with William until the divorce is settled. In less than 48 hours, I'd be in control of $38 million in assets. William had been quiet the whole time, but he finally spoke up. "You planned all this. You set this whole thing up." "No," I said. "You did. I just took the test you made me take. The truth did the rest." While we were signing the papers, Patricia pulled me aside. "Your father built something incredible here, but he let his pride ruin it. Don't you make the same mistake." "I won't," I promised her. "I don't care about dynasties or golden boys. I just want to run a good company." Security went over the building's access codes with me. Roberts's code was already shut down. Tomorrow morning, I was going to walk into Anderson and Associates. Not as the daughter who was a disappointment, but as the owner. The tables had completely turned. By morning, the story was everywhere. Anderson dynasty collapses. DNA test exposes shocking family secret. That was the headline in the Hartford Business Journal. Somebody had leaked the video of my speech. In just 48 hours, it had 2.3 million views and was still climbing. The comments were savage, but they were mostly going after William. Perfect karma, really. He totally asked for this. Imagine being so arrogant, you blow up your own legacy with a DNA test. William's LinkedIn was bleeding followers. He lost 15,000 in a week. Brandon's professional reputation was toast overnight. Screenshots of his old posts bragging about being the heir apparent became memes. The hit to the business was instant, and you could see it in the numbers. 3 big clients who were about to leave because Brandon was so bad at his job renewed their contracts when they heard I was taking over. The stock price shot up 8% in my first week. I gave one interview to the Hartford Business Journal. I kept it professional. This company was built on hard work and new ideas. We're getting back to that. The drama's over. Now we're all about business. But the media wouldn't let it go. The DNA test that wrecked a dynasty was a trending topic. Reddit threads picked apart every single angle. Someone even started a podcast about family business disasters with our story as the first episode. Michael Harrison released a statement through his lawyer. It said, "I didn't know about Brandon's parentage until the DNA results were public. I'm ready to take responsibility and want to have a relationship with my son if he's willing." Brandon's response went up on Instagram right before his account went private. "I don't need any of you. I'll build my own empire." The empire he was handed was already gone. The empire he was going to build himself. We'll see about that. My mother finally told me the whole truth the first time we talked after the party. We met at a coffee shop, neutral ground far from the wreckage of the Anderson estate. "Your father was never home," she said, just staring into her latte. "The Chicago project, then Denver, then Houston. Michael was kind. He listened. One night after a company dinner, William called to cancel again. It just happened." So did Harrison know. I think he suspected. Brandon was born 6 weeks early, but he was fully developed. He never said a thing. William never questioned it. Brandon looked enough like him. That's what everyone said anyway. The divorce was quick and nasty. Connecticut's adultery laws meant my mom lost out on a ton of money. She walked away with $12 million less than she should have. William lost the house, half of everything he had left, and every last bit of his reputation. Brandon actually sued me for intentional infliction of emotional distress, saying I ruined his life on purpose. The judge threw it out in 5 minutes. Said the plaintiff's own father ordered the DNA test. The defendant just shared the results. Case dismissed. After that, Brandon refused to talk to Harrison. He also turned down the entry-level job Harrison offered him at his investment firm, the only job offer he got. Last I heard, he was living in a studio apartment in Stamford, selling insurance. "I'm sorry," my mother said during that coffee meeting, "for everything, for not protecting you, for letting my guilt keep me quiet while William hurt you." I said, "I know," and I did. But knowing something and forgiving it are 2 different things. Can we try to rebuild something? Maybe, I told her, but not now. I need time to figure out who I am when I'm not the family screw-up. With me in charge, Anderson and Associates was finally a place where you got ahead based on skill, not who you knew. I hired a new executive team based on if they could do the job, not on their connections. Half were women, a third were people of color, and every single one of them was a rock star. That inventory system I designed was finally put in place the right way, saving us the projected $2 million a year. But more importantly, I made sure everyone got credit for their own ideas. Everyone's work was tracked, and they got the credit they deserved. The results from the first quarter of 2025 said it all. Profits shot up 23%, employee satisfaction was up 45%, and we locked down 3 big contracts that William lost because Brandon screwed them up. The Hartford Business Journal even ran a follow-up story, from DNA drama to corporate success. Stephanie Anderson's transformation of Anderson and Associates. I promoted Janet Rodriguez, who was Brandon's assistant and the one actually doing all his work, to Vice President of Operations. You've been doing the job for 5 years already, I told her. It's time you got the title and the salary to match. The whole culture at the company did a 180. The culture of fear William had built was gone, replaced by a place where people actually worked together. Folks stopped whispering in the halls and started speaking their minds in meetings. One of our biggest wins was landing the Riverside Development Project, a $30 million contract William had been chasing for 3 years. The client told me to my face, we were waiting for the leadership to change. We knew Brandon would just ruin it, but we also knew you were the one really pulling the strings behind the scenes. During a company town hall, an employee asked me how it felt to go from the shadows to the spotlight. Like I can finally breathe. I answered, and I meant it. This company was built on one man's ego. Now it's built on everyone's talent. That's why we're winning. The Anderson name was still on the building, but it meant something totally different now. William's attempts to get his life back were just pathetic. Then they got desperate. The emails started 2 weeks after the gala. Stephanie, I know I was wrong. You're the best daughter a father could ask for. Please let's just talk. Then it was, I built this company from scratch. You can't just erase me. And finally, I'm your father. That has to count for something. He even tried to walk into the building one morning, but security turned him away. The footage of him arguing with the guards, insisting he still owned the place, somehow got leaked on social media. Another humiliation to add to his collection. He hired 3 different law firms to fight the will and the DNA results. Every single case got thrown out. Peterson, his own lawyer for 20 years, testified that the will was crystal clear and that William himself insisted on the biological son part. But his most pathetic move was when he crashed a client dinner I was hosting. My daughter's doing a wonderful job with my company, he announced to the whole table, trying to weasel his way into the conversation. Sir, this is a private event, security told him. I'm her father, he snapped. You're not on the list. Now he lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in Fairfield, a 45-minute drive from the estate he used to rule. His LinkedIn profile just lists him as a consultant, with no company attached. His posts about resilience and bouncing back got fewer and fewer likes each time. As for Brandon, he had cut him off completely. My mom left him. His business partners wanted nothing to do with him. The guy who built his entire life on legacy and bloodline had lost it all. I showed you the last email he ever sent me. I didn't write back. We both knew what was up. He'd only ever given me pain. He tried so hard to prove I was nothing, and in the end he just proved I was everything. 3 months after the gala, I finally agreed to see William. Once a month, we'd have lunch in a public spot with very clear rules. Here are my terms. I told him at that first lunch. You don't get to judge my choices. You don't get to take credit for my success. And you don't get to pretend the last 20 years didn't happen. If that's a problem for you, then we're done right now. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in those 3 months. His hair was completely gray. His usual swagger was gone, replaced by a slight hunch. I got it. But Brandon was a totally different story. He sent me threatening messages, things like, "You'll pay for this," and "I'll destroy you like you destroyed me." I filed a restraining order. He was blocked on everything, and he was legally barred from contacting me. My mom was allowed limited contact with conditions. I helped her find a therapist, one who specialized in family trauma and secrets. She was dealing with 35 years of guilt. I was dealing with 20 years of being ignored. My therapist told me that forgiveness isn't a right, it's a gift. And I'm the one who decides if and when to give it. I started the Stephanie Anderson Foundation for Women in STEM, funding it with $5 million from my inheritance. Every girl who got a scholarship would know she was backed by someone who gets what it feels like to be overlooked and underestimated. Why are you helping him? Patricia Hayes asked me about my monthly lunches with William. I'm not helping him, I said. I'm choosing to be the person I want to be, no matter who he was. But trust and respect, you have to earn that from scratch. And right now, he's in the negative. The boundaries were clear, solid, and I wasn't budging. For the first time in my life, I was in charge of my relationship with my family. The success you could see on the outside was huge. CEO of a $45 million company, respected in my field, featured in Forbes 40 under 40. But the change inside me was what really mattered. I started therapy the week after the gala, working through 2 decades of being gaslit and emotionally torn down. You were the family's scapegoat, my therapist explained. Anything that went wrong was your fault. Anything that went right, someone else did it. That's not normal, and it's not okay. For the first time, I stopped saying sorry for just existing. I stopped starting my sentences with, "This might be stupid, but..." I stopped making myself smaller to make other people feel comfortable. Then I met Matthew at a charity fundraiser. He ran a nonprofit teaching kids to code. He knew my story, everyone did. But he was interested in who I was now, not my family mess. "You're brilliant," he said on our 3rd date. "And I'm not talking about the company or the money. You see solutions where other people just see problems." The Stephanie Anderson Foundation gave out 30 scholarships in its first year. Every person got more than just money. They got a mentor. I made it a point to meet with every single one of them. They told me I wasn't smart enough for engineering. One of them, Jessica, told me. My family told me to study something more for a girl. My dad, he just flat out said I was a mistake. I told them, now I'm running a $45 million company. Don't ever let anyone tell you what you're worth. The nightmares finally stopped after about 6 months. The panic attacks went away after 8. And that need for everyone's approval was gone after 10. Then one morning I just woke up and wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't afraid of what people thought, or of failing, or of someone finding out I wasn't good enough. I was Stephanie Anderson, a CEO, a philanthropist, a survivor. And for the first time in 38 years, I was exactly who I wanted to be. A year later, standing in my CEO office, I looked at that old family photo on my desk. I wasn't bitter anymore. I just understood. That scared little girl in the corner of the picture had no clue what she was capable of. That DNA test was supposed to break me, but instead it set me free. It proved that blood isn't what makes a family, but it sure can expose the lies you've been living. For 20 years, William was so sure I wasn't his kid that he threw all that doubt on me, but he never once questioned the son who actually wasn't his. My therapist once told me, your father gave you a gift. He didn't mean to, but he did. He showed everyone exactly who he really was out in the open. No more gaslighting, no more second-guessing yourself. The truth sets you free. And that truth taught me that when toxic people hand you a weapon they think will destroy you, they don't realize they're actually giving you the key to your own freedom. William's cruelty was the push I needed. His DNA test became my proof. His public downfall was my public victory. But the biggest lesson I learned is that justice isn't revenge. It's just finally getting what you deserved all along. I didn't destroy William. He destroyed himself with his own arrogance. I just refused to keep his secrets anymore. Thanks for the DNA kit, Dad. I said to the photo, then stuck it in my desk drawer. It was the best money you ever spent on me. The Anderson empire that William built on bloodlines and playing favorites was gone. In its place was something much stronger. A company built on what you can do. A leader who earned her spot. And a woman who finally knew her own value. The mistake turned out to be the only real Anderson left, and that's the biggest irony of all. Thanks for listening to my story. If you're dealing with a toxic family, remember this: you deserve respect, and it has nothing to do with blood. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about justice and courage. Share this with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. Comment boundaries below if you believe in standing up for yourself and drawing a line. Until next time, just remember that sometimes the best revenge is